Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right in today to completely dismantle a belief I'd bet almost all of us have held our entire lives. You know the story, right? We're told intelligence is genetic, that it's just this fixed number you're born with, and whether you're 18 or 50, well, you're pretty much stuck with the hand you were dealt. But what if I told you that's actually totally wrong? Today, we're diving into the data, the history, and the literal neuroscience to prove exactly why that's false and how specific habits, not your genetics, actually build higher intelligence.
So let's kick things off with a pretty provocative question. What if your IQ isn't fixed at all? I mean, when you actually examine the lives of the absolute smartest people in history, they tell a totally different story than what we were all taught in school about innate, natural-born talent.
Seriously, think about Albert Einstein for a second. As a kid, he was considered slow. His teachers literally thought he lacked intelligence. Charles Darwin, total average student who completely hated memorization. And Thomas Edison was actually expelled from school and labeled unteachable. No way, right? Yet obviously, these exact same guys completely reshaped how humanity thinks. So, what changed? It definitely wasn't their genes, and it sure wasn't their schooling. They literally changed how their brains worked by building very specific habits way before modern neuroscience could even explain why those habits were such a game changer.
All right, let's get into it. Phase 1, thinking and productive struggle.
Most people nowadays kind of just assume you get smarter by constantly consuming more stuff, right? More videos, more podcasts, more articles, just endless information. But neuroscience actually shows us the exact opposite. Your brain literally gets smarter when you force it to think without any external input. Doing this activates this amazing system in your brain called the default mode network. This is the area responsible for abstract thinking, those sudden aha insights, long-term reasoning, and creativity. But here's the catch. It only fires up when you turn the noise off.
To put that into perspective, Einstein famously did these purely imaginative thought experiments. He wasn't always just sitting there crunching numbers at a desk. He'd let his mind completely wander into the profound. He'd ask himself these wild questions, like, what happens if I chase a beam of light? Or what happens if gravity bends space? And he would walk alone for hours doing this. No books, no notes, zero distractions, just pure, unadulterated thinking.
So, that brings us to our very first habit, deep thinking. Modern studies absolutely back this up, showing that people who regularly take time for undistracted thinking score way higher in problem solving and creative intelligence. The actual habit to start here is a daily thinking walk. No phone, no music, no podcasts. Now let's be real. When you first try this, it's gonna feel incredibly boring. You'll probably reach for that phantom phone in your pocket like 3 times in the first minute alone. It feels super uncomfortable, but if you push through, it becomes deeply insightful. Because that initial discomfort you feel, that is the literal feeling of your intelligence growing and your brain building brand new capacity. Okay, moving right along, let's see how this ties into how we handle challenges. Psychologists call this specific 4-step sequence productive struggle. Basically, highly intelligent people don't rush to find the answers. Instead, they deliberately delay getting help. Benjamin Franklin actually trained himself using this exact method. He'd read an essay, put it completely away out of sight, and then force himself to rewrite the whole thing from memory. Only after going through this grueling cycle of trying, failing, adjusting, and retrying would he finally check his work against the original.
Why put himself through that? Because it forced his brain to actively retrieve, reorganize, and refine the information. Modern brain imaging proves that this exact type of struggle builds way deeper neural pathways than just passively having something explained to you. I mean, this is exactly why looking up a quick answer on your phone feels productive in the moment, but you completely forget it an hour later, right? So habit 2 is to delay help. Always write out your best answer first, even if it's completely wrong. Seriously, never view struggling with a tough concept as a sign that you aren't smart. Struggle is literally the mechanism that builds your intelligence.
Which brings us to phase 2, writing and mental models. Shifting gears from internal thought to external processing, there's a huge difference in why people write things down. Most of us just write to store information, kind of like a human tape recorder taking dictation. But really smart people, they write to detect gaps and clarify their own thinking. Research from places like Princeton and UCLA confirms that writing by hand forces your brain to slow down and literally makes your thinking visible. It improves your understanding of concepts way more than just typing or reading. Take Leonardo da Vinci, for example. He wasn't writing perfectly polished essays. His notebooks were full of questions, messy diagrams, fragments, and contradictions. They weren't rigidly organized at all. They were alive with active processing.
Writing is what took his vague ideas and made them incredibly precise.
To actually put this into practice, habit 3 is writing to think. Try keeping a daily thinking journal, but, and this is key, stop just logging what you did that day. Actually examine your thoughts. Ask yourself stuff like, what do I actually understand about what I learned today? Where did I get confused? What idea still feels a little unfinished? Intelligence really grows when ideas are actively examined, rather than just hoarded in a notebook you're never ever going to read again.
And examining those ideas across completely different subjects brings us to habit 4. High IQ folks don't just memorize random, isolated facts, they grasp entire systems. The legendary investor Charlie Munger famously called this a latticework of mental models. Basically, it means pulling foundational truths from a bunch of different disciplines. You take cause and effect from physics, adaptation from biology, human bias from psychology, and the power of incentives from economics. Polymaths like Aristotle or Goethe absolutely dominated history because they developed what's called transfer intelligence. That's the ability to take an idea from one area and seamlessly apply it to a completely new situation.
And modern research totally backs this up. People who learn across different domains show much higher fluid intelligence, meaning they can reason their way through totally novel, unfamiliar problems. So, habit 4 is to actively build your mental models. Try to make it a rule to learn just one concept completely outside your normal field of work or study every single week. You don't have to become an expert in it, just understand the core concept. Your brain gets significantly sharper when totally different ideas start connecting in your head.
Okay, last major section here, phase 3, memory and cognitive recovery.
For this final phase, we need to completely reframe how we think about rest and memory. Habit 5 is deliberate memory training. Listen, memory isn't just some cool party trick. Having a sharper memory actually gives you faster reasoning skills. Think about brilliant minds like Nikola Tesla. The guy had such an unbelievably advanced working memory that he could mentally visualize entire complex machines, rotate them in his head, and literally test them for wear and tear before ever building a physical prototype. Wild, right? Ancient scholars trained their memories on purpose, using things like active recall, spaced repetition, and visualization. And we now know why. MRI studies today show that people who actively train their memories physically develop denser, far more efficient brain connections. They literally rewire their neural networks. So your habit here is to recall before you review. Force yourself to explain complex ideas and teach what you've learned without glancing at your notes. Memory isn't a natural gift, it's a highly trainable muscle.
Now, 4 to 5. Any guesses on what that represents? Well, that is actually the surprisingly small number of focused hours Charles Darwin worked every single day. That's it. Just 4 to 5 hours of deep, intense focus. The entire rest of his day was spent walking in nature, resting, and just reflecting. Really smart people don't try to think intensely for 12 hours straight. They put in the work when their brain is at its absolute peak, and then they stop.
Which leads us perfectly into habit 6, protect your cognitive energy. I know we live in a culture that totally glorifies the hustle and the grind, but chronic stress, skimping on sleep, and just constant digital stimulation literally damage your executive function, which is a huge core component of your IQ. Your brain does not actually upgrade during the hustle. It upgrades during recovery. If you want to build intelligence, you absolutely have to sleep deeply, move your body every day, get real natural sunlight, and, this is crucial, allow yourself to be bored. Boredom isn't a weakness. It's absolutely vital cognitive recovery. And finally, wrapping things up, build systems, not hacks.
Bringing this all together, we really need to shift our whole perspective on lifelong learning. The absolute, undeniable truth is that intelligence is a system. It doesn't increase through cheap internet hacks or some overnight shortcut. It increases through consistent, intentional habits. The smartest people in history didn't just passively hope to get smarter. They built highly sustainable daily systems that naturally forced their intelligence to compound over time. From Einstein's quiet, phoneless walks to Darwin's incredibly strict boundaries between work and rest, their brilliance was a direct product of their daily design.
So, I want to leave you with this one question to chew on. How will you change your systems today? If you genuinely want to think clearer, learn faster, and build a truly stronger mind, you have to start with your daily habits, not just by hoarding more random information. Take a second right now and ask yourself, what is just one system, one single habit we talked about today that you can start changing right now? And hey, if this explainer changed how you view your own potential, please share it with someone in your life who still thinks they're stuck with the IQ they were born with. Thanks so much for joining me today, and here's to building a stronger mind, one habit at a time.